What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to be talking about Art Online Alicization, War of Underworld, episodes 1, 2, and 3. The reason why I'm doing 3 episodes in one is, well, because I fell behind because I was away for a week. I had to catch up, get them out early for the Patreon members, and finally get the reviews and reactions out to you guys here on YouTube and Breach. So of course I'm going to do 1 through 3, that way we can catch up and be ready for episode 4 this Saturday, which will release next week sometime here on YouTube. And I have to say, I really enjoyed these 3 episodes of SAO, but I really enjoyed episode 3 the most. And it's kind of weird for me to say that because I wasn't a huge fan of the real world aspect in the first half of Alicization. I didn't mind it, but I always wanted to get back into the underworld. I always wanted to get back and follow Kirito on his journey to take down the Axiom Church and Quinella, the administrator. So I really didn't care too much about the human side, you know, the real world side. But this episode, episode 3, well, one of these episodes, episode 3, definitely has me interested because the threat within the real world, the people that are attacking Raft right now, the ocean turtle, just dove, 2 of them just dove into the underworld and took over some super accounts that are part of the dark territory rather than the human side. They were going to take over the human side, but those super accounts were locked. But they were able to get into somebody called Emperor Vector and another Dark Knight. But before we jump in all that and talk about the first 3 episodes, I just want to ask you guys to please smash that like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more if you're new here. Hit the bell to be notified whenever I do upload videos. But the best way to be notified is to join our Discord and follow me on Twitter. Also, consider becoming a Patreon member. Patreon members get early access reactions, access to polls that determine what we're going to watch next, and other perks as well. Helps this channel survive, helps me continue to be a content creator, and you guys get some cool perks. Also, come follow me on Twitch. I play a lot of different video games over there. Well, I play a lot of fighters. I started playing some other fighting games, and we're getting into more Japanese RPGs over there. All those links are down below, alongside the episode 1, 2, and 3 reactions. So let's first and foremost talk about episode 1. We open up with Kirito and Alice in the fantasy, you know, the fantasy world, underworld, whatever you want. Well, underworld. I don't know why I'm calling it the fantasy world. The underworld. And Kirito is basically in a coma in a sense. He can't really act that much. And that's all because he was trying to access that panel and there was a power surge. And it pretty much ruined his self-image. It ruined his ego, as Higa put it. I think his name's Higa, the blonde-haired guy with the glasses that works with Kikoya for Raft. He said that his ego, his self-image is hurt, and he doesn't really have one right now, so he's kind of detached. And the only thing Kirito can really do is reach out for the swords, because obviously one was, I guess, reminds him of Yu-Gi-Oh! And more than likely, they both are like sort of part of his self-image, I guess you can say, so that's why he's always reaching out for them. And there's a scene where, because now they're back at Rootlet Village, but they're on the outskirts because they didn't want a criminal living there, which would be Alice, but they didn't know that she is an Integrity Knight, and I didn't know that they didn't know until episode 3 when she announced that she was an Integrity Knight and she was taking control of the situation in Rootlet Village, which was them being overrun by orcs and goblins, the Dark Territory. But either way, they're living on the outskirts of Rootlet Village. We get to see Selka again, which is cool. Even though Alice doesn't really remember anything from her time as the previous Alice, she still welcomes Selka with open arms, you know, hugs her, stuff like that. Still calls her father, even though she can't remember anything from her childhood. So it's interesting to see. It was also interesting to see one of the Integrity Knights fly to her and beg her to come back to the Integrity Knights. It was her mentor, aldchri, or not her mentor, her disciple, aldchri, that came begging her to come back. And she claims that she doesn't have the power to do so because she doesn't have the purpose. She doesn't know where to go from here. And that's what we learned at the end of episode 3. And that's all because of the incarnation system. A lot of it is driven by feelings and your self-image. And if you don't have a purpose, of course, you're going to lose your power. And she lost her power until she found her purpose again in episode 3, took up arms and went up against the Dark Territory, protecting her hometown in the process. And everybody coming to respect her because they know she's an Integrity Knight. And obviously Integrity Knights are respected by the human empire, the Elam Empire. So it was cool to see her come, you know, do a 180. You know, she was just super confident person, super confident integrity knight, lost her purpose. Where do I go from here? And then she gained her purpose again, gained her power back, and was able to fight against the hordes of the Dark Territory. It was also cool seeing her dragon that she flies, Amayuri, I believe, or something like that, is actually the younger sibling of aldchri's dragon, which is kind of cool to see, considering aldchri is the disciple of Alice. So I thought that was a nice little bit of information as well. But then we get episode 3. After they, they get rid of the hordes and all that, episode 3, we get to deal with the human aspect, the real world aspect, about what's going on after, Raft started to get attacked by these militant individuals. It turns out that, yes, they are American, because remember, GGO is an American game. It's ran by an American company, but that doesn't really matter. Either way, they were definitely practicing for this operation within GGO. They brought their skills to, not even skills, they were already skilled to begin with, because this guy, Mr. Miller, who's the one leading the attack, apparently is like the CEO or owner or whatever of this defense company. So they're skilled. They're basically like mercenaries. They're militant for hire. So they're working with the NSA of America, and of course, America can't be involved whatsoever, even though they're coming to them, keeping it under wraps. And apparently they have a line to the Japanese Defense Force or whatever, and they're being told that they won't act for 24 hours or something like that. And of course, the American government, the NSA, they want the light cube cluster. They want to look into this artificial souls and stuff. And they claim because if they manage to do this in Japan, it's going to destabilize Japan. It's going to destabilize all of the Asian countries. This is what the NSA is claiming, because Kikoya is going to put these artificial Flucklights, these souls, into unmanned vessels, apparently. So this is why America's getting involved, because we need to stick our noses in other people's business and try to stop the Asian countries from destabilizing, is what their excuse is. I'm sure there's another excuse for it. The government always wants this new technology for themselves, so I'm sure the American government in SAO is planning to use it for something else. They're just using the whole destabilization of the Asian countries as an excuse. But either way, that's why Mr. Miller and his crew are there. They're there to get the light cube cluster and to take the one specific artificial Flucklight out, which is Alice, because she's like different than all the other Flucklights so far. So it was interesting to learn all that. I really enjoyed learning about these new assailants, learning that they're from America, because this is the first time I think we've gotten like American players involved in the whole thing, if I'm not mistaken. It was cool to see, that they're skilled. The four-eyed guy, the hacker, arguing with the right-hand man of Mr. Miller. That was interesting. It was kind of funny. But then they find out that they can dive into the underworld using super accounts, but the human ones are locked out. There's high-level security passwords on it. But then they look to see if there's anybody on the Dark Territory side they can take. And this is when it just expanded the world so much more for me, because obviously I'm an anime only. And we learned that there's actually humans on the Dark Territory side. And I didn't know that. I thought it was going to be all monsters like orcs, goblins, so forth. But there's actually humans that are part of the Dark Territory. We get to see 2 of the Dark Knights. One of them is an older individual, and he wants the younger one to marry him. Apparently, he's like the head of the Dark Knights or whatever. I feel like those are heavy death flags, like they're setting it up for them to be murked by Emperor Vector, who's being controlled by Mr. Miller, and the Dark Knight that's being controlled by his right hand. We have yet to get a name for that Dark Knight, but it was still interesting to see. And it was interesting to see the politics between, or the politics of the Dark Territory. Apparently, these 2 Dark Knights, they want peace, but 5 of the 10 or 4 of the 10 that are on this High Council, they don't want peace. They want to go to war. They want to conquer the human empire. And 2 of them are orc leaders. Another one's a goblin leader. And then there's a human leader of the Dark Mage Guild who wouldn't be on board with it either. So I just thought it was very interesting to find out that there's humans that are a part of this Dark Territory, because this whole time we kept being told they're orcs, they're goblins. Yes, there was mention of a Dark Knight in the very beginning of Alicization, where the one Integrity Knight was fighting against a Dark Knight, but we didn't get to see underneath the Dark Knight's armor. It could have been an orc, it could have been a goblin. Turns out they're human beings. So it's very interesting to learn that. I thought it was going to be humans versus monsters, but that's not the case here. And apparently, like I said, there's a human leading the Dark Mage Guild. I'm very curious to see what she's all about, because apparently she learned the secret of immortality, which Quinella cracked. Apparently she cracked it as well, and she has immortality. So that should be an interesting plot point as well. But I feel like these two Dark Knights that we were introduced to, the two that are going to get married, apparently, feel like those were major death flags. I feel like they're setting up their deaths. Apparently, they want peace, and more than likely, Mr. Miller and his associate do not want peace. They want to go to war because they want to extract Alice. So I'm very curious to see where it's going to go from here. And also, I'm very happy that Asuna is now diving into the underworld, because I've been waiting for some of the other crew to do that, because they really haven't played much of a role in Alicization yet. So I'm really happy that Asuna's diving in. I want to see what her avatar is going to look like. More than likely, it's going to look similar to her, just like Kirito's looks similar to him in the real world. But I want to see like her interact with Alice. I want to see her try to get through the Kirito. Should be really interesting to see. And then we also heard Yui telling the crew back in Japan about everything that's going on, and that they might need their help later. So I would love to see Yui pull some like technological magic out of her ass and get them into the underworld too, possibly. It'd be cool to see what they would do in the underworld, what they would look like and stuff. We've seen Yui do things like this before, not to that magnitude, but we've seen her do things like that in the movie, where she went into like the SAO's data and got their old data and stuff like that. Granted, that's also a movie, that's not the anime, but still, they did mention that they might need their help later. So what exactly does that mean? I'm hoping that we get to see Klein and some others, like a Jill and Sinon and whatnot, dive into the underworld. I think that would be absolutely awesome. But guys, what are your thoughts? But I don't know how that's going to happen, because once again, they're in Japan. Asuna and Kirito are in the Ocean Turtle, and there was only one other STL in the area where Kirito was, and the other two STLs are being used by Mr. Miller and his associate. But of course, like I said, perhaps Yui's going to pull something out of her ass and get them into the underworld. But guys, what are your thoughts on these 3 episodes of SAO Alicization, War of Underworld? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. As always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon for another video.